He can hear us? He doesn't say he can hear. Oh, okay. We still got to get ready to.
I can hear you.
Okay, folks, it's actually 6:30. We're going to go ahead and get started here. We have Casey Whalen on line, but we're going to go ahead and get started with prayer and a pledge and a little bit of business. I asked Merlin Shirtlift to give us the opening prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we are most grateful at this time to be able to come together this night for this town hall, and we're grateful for Mr. Whalen and his willingness to go out and seek out truth and come and teach us the things that he has learned. We're grateful for Doug Toomer and his efforts to organize this so that we can have the opportunity to learn more. Please bless us that we will have spirit of discernment, that we'll recognize truth, and that we'll be able to do those things which should help strengthen and protect this great country. And these things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Merlin. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'll hurry real quick here. Again, we're on Rumble. A lot of us know that. Just please join us, follow us. We're actually on YouTube now too. We live stream to Rumble, and then we'll upload things into YouTube after we get done. We had a runoff election this for mayor and the city council person, and Lisa Burtonshaw won mayor and Brandon Lee won city council person. Congratulations to both of them. What's really interesting is 38% of the registered voters in Idaho Falls City actually voted. That's actually more. I heard that it was the first time a runoff has had more votes than the general election. So it was obviously it's good that the voters got out and all that. Also, over the American 250 Commission, some ladies here and from Stand Up for Idaho actually get together on Jolene Thomas show on KID News Radio 106.3 every Thursday at 5 o'clock and give us a historical lesson of what happened about 250 years ago. Just a reminder, 250 years ago this year, the Revolutionary War was well underway. 250 years as of July 4th, 2026 will be the 250th anniversary of the signed Declaration of Independence. I'll say it again, and I'll continue to do this. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for what happened 250 years ago, so we need to celebrate it. Also, a couple of weeks ago, we had Ben Geeson coming here talking about money and the mechanics of the financial system, and it's way over my head, but he has some books and stuff, and he did a really good job explaining some things. I mean, a topic that's, 5 feet deep, if you will. He covered the first half inch, I think. And so I'd encourage you to go back and watch that. And also, he's selling some books and stuff. And the books are $25 a piece. And he says that every book that he sells, he'll donate $5 to Stand Up for Idaho. So that's really good. I appreciate Ben for doing that. And he's right down here in the front. And if you're interested in his books, get a hold of him. Mark your calendar again. And this is February 7th next year. Okay, we're going to have our gala. This is actually the only fundraiser Stand Up for Idaho has had and stuff. And this is, it's going to be a night of dancing and enjoyment. And we're going to have some appetizers. We'll have some auction items and things like that. But this is a fundraiser for Stand Up for Idaho. And I'd encourage, mark the date and plan on coming. It's going to be a great time. Okay. Next week, we're actually going to have Jim Francis. He's of the Idaho Falls City Council, and he's going to come and talk to us about things. And the topic is land use decisions. A city council faces the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I sat down and talked to Jim a few weeks ago before the elections went out and about a few things. And he told me it's a lot harder than you think it is. being a city council person, and he tried to explain some things, and so I asked him to come. I asked him to come and talk to us about some of the things that a city council person has to deal with, and especially, there's questions about all the apartments and this that have gone up, and he agreed to come. Now he's going to do a presentation. His background he's a history teacher, a high school history teacher, and so he's going to give us a class. He really is going to give us a class on some things that if you were a student taking a philosophy class from him, and so he's going to try to teach us really about how some of the things that they have to, a city council person has to face. And with that's going to be some expectations. You're going to go back to high school and you're going to be like, you're going to have to sit in your chair and raise your hand when the teacher to ask a question, this type of stuff. So, and that's good. We all need to learn something. And I think it'll be greatly beneficial for us to do that. Okay. The following Wednesday, December 17th, Karen Hyde of the Idaho Transportation Department will be here and talk to us about the I-15 US 20 connector, and that's the whole new interchange and whatnot system that it's going to go around Idaho Falls, I'll just say. And there's been a lot of questions about that. Wednesday, December 24th, Christmas break, we won't be here. Wednesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, we won't be here. So with that, I'm going to get started on tonight. Okay, you came here to listen about what's going on, and I want to read something real quick, and I'll go through some stuff. This past September, a delegation of 250 state legislators from across the country traveled to Israel to attend a bipartisan conference for American state legislators. The conference was called 50 States, One Israel. The entire cost of the trip was paid for by the Israeli government and was aimed at strengthening ties between the 50 states of Israel and urging legislative support for pro-Israeli policies, including anti-boycott, divestment, and sanction laws, also known as anti-BDS type laws. Okay, and I'm taking this data actually from other publications and stuff, and most of it I got from the Jerusalem Post, and Boise State Public Radio had some things, and also Idaho Capital Sun and stuff. But according to the Boise State Public Radio, 5 Idaho legislators were among the 250 legislators that attended the conference. House Assistant Majority Leader Josh Tanner, Republican from Eagle, House Minority Leader Ilana Rubel, Democrat from Boise, House Local Government Committee Chairwoman Barbara Ehart, Republican from Idaho Falls, House Judiciary Rules and Administrative Committee Chairman Bruce Skog, from Republican from Nampa, and Representative John Schertz, Republican from Weiser, participated in the trip. Those were the 5 that actually went. Now, Senator Kelly Anthem, who's actually from Burley, Republican from Burley, and is the Senate pro tem, was also supposed to go, and apparently he got on the plane and got as far as to New York and whatnot, but wasn't feeling very good, and so he came home. Okay. Casey has been actually investigating the 50 States, One Israel conference and some of the Israel's influence on Idaho legislation and stuff, and he'd like to share a bit about what he's found out thus far. But before I turn it over to Casey, I need to make some comments. First off, I've received some hate mail over this topic, and even from letting Casey talk. Okay. The thing that everything that I just mentioned, from that was written here, that the people and all that came from sources that when I sent out my weekly email, I posted a bunch of links in there. That's where all of this data come from. So everything that I put out is it's factual. Okay, and you can go check it out if you want. Now, some questions that I have, and I think we all had asked ourselves, is why should Israel get special treatment over other nations, including the United States? And I look at it like this. You can publicly desecrate the American flag. You can do whatever you want to that flag, and nothing's without recourse. Nothing's going to happen to you. But why do we give special treatment maybe for Israel to do that? The question that I have is, Okay, and then how much influence does Israel have over our state legislation? These type things. Now, questioning Israel's influence and special treatment, in my eyes, isn't anti-Semitic. A lot of people say, "Oh, you are." Okay, and I've got in trouble by saying this, but I look at it this way: we should question how much influence any foreign nation has on our state and our nation. Substitute the name of Israel for any other country: China, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, whomever. Why should any other country have special treatment or have influence over, our country and our state, especially? One thing is how is giving an all expense paid trip to state legislators not a bribe? That's a tough question. Okay. And I put this way, whether it is this trip that people went on to Israel or any other trip that legislators take where their trips are paid for. Apparently, several legislators went to Turkey in 2011. I just found out about that the other day. And supposedly, Representative Raybould from Madison County, I think it is, went to China. Okay, I was saying, oh, well, this. Okay, the one thing about Representative Raybould is she does have a company, okay, a farm and all of that. I think it's Raybould Brothers Farms or something like that. I don't know what capacity Ms. Raybould went to China. Did she go as a legislator or did she go as a representative of her company? Okay, it makes a difference. And so, questions that come to my mind is, what trips are our legislators taking? How many are they taking? Okay, whether they be domestic, they're just going from here to Florida, going here to Disneyland or whatever, or whether it's international. And who's paying for them? Okay, if a non-government entity is paying, does that present an ethical or conflict of interest situation? Okay, obviously, companies don't do things for nothing. Okay, I used to work at the Idaho National Laboratory, and it was a really big concern at the laboratory about me working with a company or whatever like that, and actually even going out to dinner with their representative. I couldn't let them buy dinner because of a potential conflict of interest because of ethical issues. So, this is a question. Is it a problem? And again, if we, the taxpayer, are paying, is it a justifiable use of our taxes? Like if we have a legislator that is constantly going somewhere all of the time, do we know how many trips that individual is taking and what they're for? And is it a good use of our taxpayer funds? These are questions that I think we ought to be asking ourselves and holding our legislators responsible. It's not just this trip to Israel, but it's all of these trips. I started, most of you I hope you got my email. I started my weekly email this week by saying this is a highly controversial topic. And Israel's influence on the United States has recently been questioned by many people, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owen, and even the late Charlie Kirk. Okay, so they're just questioning. And so just us doing this has become very controversial. Well, Stand Up for Idaho, we're not going to shy away from controversial topics because we think it's important for people to understand. Now, and to uncover what is really true. And that's what we're really trying to do here, Stand Up for Idaho. We believe it is necessary to have an open mind. We have to have an open mind and hear all sides of a story. And regardless of how controversial that side of the story may be, you may not want to hear it, but you know what? Maybe there's something behind that. And so that's what Stand Up for Idaho is all about. We're going to address the controversial issues. We're going to bring them up here because they're important for us to know. And with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Casey and let him talk to us and tell us what he's doing. Let's give Casey a big hand. And thanks for joining us, Casey. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, Doug. Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You bet. So, Casey, from here out, I guess I'll just turn it over to you and let you say what you want. And people, if you have a question and whatnot, I'd like you to come up to the microphone here, talk into the microphone, and look at that screen. That way, Casey can see who he's talking to. So, with that, Casey, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. And I will have a presentation, a slideshow here. And really, this is a little bit to talk about 50 states, one Israel. But actually, there's a bigger issue, a larger topic at hand here, and I hope that a lot of you get something from this at least. So, my name is Casey Whalen. I'm an investigative journalist. I actually started out a handful of years ago, around 2017, 2016. I started out as what's called a First Amendment auditor, and I would get full-size constitutions from the Idaho Secretary of State's office, and I would take those into the sheriff's department and police departments as a litmus test to ensure or find out if our rights are respected and upheld. And I found out that that's not like that's not so much the case. They have to follow certain procedures and rules, but God bless them for what they do. And anyways, I transitioned from that into working out of a studio in Spokane, Washington, for 2 years, helping film interviews with a friend of mine, Rob Chase, who's Washington State legislator now. Learned the videography trade and have done produced videos for the John Birch Society, Vice News, multiple outlets. And basically, I was trying now to, as an investigative journalist, embed myself in various communities throughout Idaho and help develop stories and get those out into the ether and help those that are marginalized and their voices are not heard. So it's very grassroots. It's a lot of hard work. It's being a starving artist, but at the end of the day, it's every year it gets better and better. And I'm trying to fold in people in the community, not reinvent the wheel, and fold them into alternative media outlets so their stories can get out there, because people in your community, you understand the stories, you understand the issues. A lot of you are already very talented people and writers. Some of you have time to do that, and so I think it's very important to get that to the right people and networks. So that's really what my passion is, and I feel like it's what God wants me to do. So just a little bit about who I am, just for some of you who may not know. But it's nice to be here, Doug, and thank you for having me. And it's nice to. I wish I could be there. I was there a couple of years ago with Dr. Judy Mikovits and Misty Karlfeld from Health Freedom Idaho, and it was really nice to meet some of you folks. And I hope to get down there soon. So thanks for having me on. But I do have a presentation I can show here. I don't know if I can do a screen share. I need permission again to do that, or try to do that here real quick. I think I can do that. You see that? Can you see that presentation?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay. I can't really see what you can see. So we'll just start off talking about 50 states, one Israel delegation that went to Israel September 13th through the 18th technically, but it was really the 14th through the 18th. And so essentially they went there to experience Israel. In my opinion, it was an influence opportunity to promote Israel. That's fine. Make of it what you will. But I just was really curious about this trip, as many people were. A lot of people were caught off guard by this trip. It was put on by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. And they had tried this actually, I believe it was 2018 in the state of California, and they had a handful of delegates from the state at that time go over to Israel to do something similar to what they did just a couple months ago. So over 200, as Doug had said prior, over 250 delegates, or almost 250 delegates from across the nation went to Israel. Dinners, music, experiencing different sites throughout Israel. And then when they returned, there was actually a lot of backlash. The 5 delegates faced a lot of criticism from their citizens. They did receive some praise. But I was essentially really curious about, where is this really coming from? Who's behind this? What are these networks? Because I think a lot of people were asking that question, rightly so, because, receiving gifts and all this, it doesn't look, it's not a good look, let's be honest. So that was my passion. to kind of uncover this a little bit and unpackage it. So I'll just go to this next slide here. So the 50 states, as Doug mentioned prior here, the 50 states, one Israel delegation met in Israel September 14th through the 18th this year. This contingent consisted of 250 state legislators from all 50 states. 5 Idaho representatives were also present, hosted by the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And as Doug had mentioned, House Assistant Majority Leader Josh Tanner, House Minority Leader Ilana Rubel, who's a Jewish Democrat, just to mention that. Then we have Ehart, we have Skog, and Schertz. So I did records requests for email. Here's a picture of them planting trees. Each state had their representatives or delegates plant a tree. That was one of the first days that Barbara mentioned last month when she spoke at Stand Up for Idaho, had mentioned that I think it was one of the first days they planted these trees. And make of it what you will. I wanted to mention this from George Washington just real briefly. And he stated that against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republican government. But that jealousy, to be useful, must be impartial, else it becomes the instrument of the very influence to be avoided instead of a defense against it. Excessive partiality for one foreign nation and excise dislike of another cause those whom they actuate to see danger only on one side and serve to veil the even second, the arts of influence on the other. Real patriots who may resist the intrigues of the favorite are liable to become suspected and odious, while its tools and dupes usurp the applause and confidence of the people to surrender their interests. The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, to have with them as little political connection as possible. So far as we have already formed engagements, let them be fulfilled with perfect good faith. Here, let's stop. So just warning us of foreign entanglements. So I think that's very important. So the nature of the records request was essentially, I conducted these records requests, if I can talk here, through the Legislative Services Office, the LSO, through the Idaho legislature, initially focusing on the 5 Idaho legislators who attended the 50 states, 1 Israel delegation, and all 70 House representatives over many months' duration. And I have yet to read those emails from the 70 House representatives. I have a couple records requests in the works I haven't read yet. I should have pretty much any day now, and it will explain a little bit more backstory to some other issues, which we won't talk about right now. But the results were that it yielded thousands of pages of emails to research interconnections with groups that came up. One is the National Association of Jewish Legislators, and the other is the Jewish Federations of North America. And again, this was paid for by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. And so Josh Tanner, from what I understand, paid for the trip himself, but the rest of the delegates had that paid for by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. So we're not going to talk on this very much because there's a larger issue here. I'm really trying to accentuate, but this is part and parcel to the overall issue. So when I did these records requests from these delegates, these representatives, there were some emails that the non-Jewish delegates didn't receive that Jewish Democrat Ilana Rubel did receive. And so those organizations were this one here from the Jewish Federations of North America. So Ilana Rubel is the only one that received this communique from this organization. And so they're talking essentially about networking with their organization, and he included some talking points to Ilana Rubel, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. After she returned from the trip, she received a lot of criticism because she was largely responsible for helping get some delegates, non-Jewish delegates, to go. So this was one of the groups that Ilana Rubel received emails from. So just to real briefly, we're the Jewish Federations of North America is a national umbrella for 140 Jewish federations, supports 300 smaller network communities. Just real quickly, raises and distributes over 2 billion per year. And the underlying theme you'll see in some of these groups that will keep popping up is that here they're a key coordinator in responses to anti-Semitism, crisis and community threats. So that's sort of who that group is. Now, the other organization that sent an email to Ilana Rubel and the other non-Jewish representatives did not receive a communique from is the National Association of Jewish Legislators. And so in this email from Jeff Weiss, who helps run this organization, this back in July, for a couple months before the trip, he asked Representative Ilana Rubel if she could also, he asked if you could please suggest the names of 2 or 3 non-Jewish state legislators in your state who might benefit from this trip and should also be invited. So that's really telling that they're just trying to include people that are maybe not privy to their cause, to include them. So the NAJL, the National Association of Jewish Legislators, was founded in 1977. If they network with other Jewish state legislators across the country, which is fine. We're just trying to show where this is coming from. And to me, since these other representatives didn't receive emails from these groups, it's very telling to me. But it goes on here to kind of talk about what they do. Again, they do bring up the anti-Semitism legislation, which will come up here in a minute. Holocaust education, which is something that was passed last legislative cycle in a House concurrent resolution, number 25, that encouraged Holocaust education in middle school and then to have it reaffirmed in high school, from what I understand. So that's something that's passed. It hasn't become like a law, but it's more of a suggestion or an encouragement for these school systems. Just something to be aware of. That's HCR number 25. I didn't include it in this presentation, but it'll probably be coming up the next legislative cycle. So this is just a little message here from both of these 2 groups we just talked about, the National Federations of North America and the National Association of Jewish Legislators. And it talks about how they're now partnered together, to get their message out. And this is just an email from the Consulate of Israel out of San Francisco, who represent the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. All the representatives received emails like this. I went through thousands of emails, it was interesting to compare and contrast, what Ilana Rubel received and what the other representatives received, because it was just very crystal clear kind of what was going on and where a lot of this was coming from. So this is just kind of accentuating this message, this email from Eli Byrne from the Jewish Federations of North America. Again, Ilana Rubel came back from the trip along with the other representatives from Israel, and they've received a lot of backlash from some constituents. There were some students that signed a letter to Rubel and asked her to step down as minority whip, which she didn't do. I'll just play this video because we have a little time kill, so I have quite a few slides here, I think, but just to make it last. Do you have any questions before I play this video real briefly? I'm gonna take that as no. I don't know if your video's frozen or what. All right, we'll go ahead and play this video here.
Can't hear what you're saying, what the video's saying.
Sorry, it's not working. You can't hear
We
the
couldn't
audio?
hear what you said, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is just anyways, we'll just skip that then if you can't. You can't hear the audio at all?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just keep going here. So on my Substack here, you can see what I do is when I've done thousands of records requests throughout the country over the years. And what I like to do is I just like to make those records requests public. I don't like to, try to put out as much as I can. Sometimes it's just too much, but in this recent article I wrote, Israel influence op targets American legislators, on my Substack here. You can go to caseywhalen.substack.com. And I show you the records requests that I've been receiving. I show you the emails from their constituents that are not very happy with them attending this trip. But this is from that Substack article, and it just mentions here that they essentially, the Idaho Israel Alliance also sent messages to the representatives to meet with them before and after the trip. And they're a group that's embedded within right downtown Boise, essentially. So they're meeting with these legislators to promote, their agenda, to promote Israel, to promote, as they state here, they want to flesh out the IHRA definition of the Holocaust, which is the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism in Idaho. And a lot of people would consider that a First Amendment issue, as I do. I consider that a problem. So that's they're saying here in this newsletter. The Idaho Israel Alliance sent these newsletters to all legislators. From what I'm pretty sure, I'll be able to verify that soon. But they want to have this anti-Semitism on the books, as they do in Florida, in other states. So something to be aware of that will be coming up next legislative cycle. So we're going to probably get away a little bit. Here's another email real quickly. After Ilana Rubel returned from the 50 states, One Israel delegation, she was given an email from Dan Berger, who helps run the Idaho Israel Alliance, asking her if she would like to be on the board of the Idaho Israel Alliance. And Ilana Rubel says that basically, with the election going on, it's really be hard for her, but she makes it sound like, she would be interested in possibly being on the board. So, is that a conflict of interest right there? That's up to her constituents to decide, but made that public for people to know about that. So we're going to sort of change tact a little bit. We're going to talk about some of these laws real quick. Last legislative cycle this year, it was leaked to me this routing slip, which those are not public generally, of a potential anti-Semitism bill that was sponsored by Representative Barbara Ehart. And in this, you can kind of see here, it talks about what that means. It says anti-Semitism, including harassment on the basis of actual or perceived Jewish origin, ancestry, ethnicity, et cetera, and it goes on. But what really got me is this didn't pass. This is not law, but I'm guessing it will be up for possibly becoming law next legislative cycle for people to be aware. But what really got me was that it mentions, as far as the penalty for this, for being quote unquote anti-Semitic, the penalty, criminal and civil here, is malicious harassment. So Idaho already has a malicious harassment law on the book since 1983, and it's basically an enhancement. If you cause injury to somebody, and you call them whatever based on race, sex, religion, that can be added as an additional crime. So that gets to be a little bit dangerous when we're creating these specialized classes of people. So to me, that's really big, because it's creating a specialized class of people. So here's the First Amendment: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And here's Article 1, Section 9 from the Idaho Constitution: freedom of speech. Every person may freely speak, write, and publish on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of liberty. I guess you probably can't hear this audio, but this was a little clip from Ehart, Representative Ehart last month. I guess you can't hear this. Maybe I'll try to play it, but.
No, we can't hear it, but I'd say that, if people are interested in seeing what you said, you can go back and look at our check it out on our Rumble channel. That was just a couple of weeks ago. So
Yeah, but she's just basically saying if you can't, she's talking about this anti-Semitism bill that she was trying to pass, and she doesn't think that it goes against freedom of speech. But if you're, in my opinion, if you're trying to pass something that influences somebody's behavior, which these legislators are not allowed to do that. They can pass things that influences the behavior of the bureaucracy, but they cannot create laws that influence the behavior of people because they don't have any more rights than we do. So in my opinion, it's extremely unlawful. We don't need to be creating special classes of people, in my opinion. But I understand, obviously this is a hot topic right now. So this, and suffice to say, this anti-Semitism bill potentially will be, this routing slip will come up again here very shortly, next month or two, during the next legislative cycle. And I'm doing more records requests to find out more of the history of that, just because I'm really curious. You can see this slide here. This is the Anti-Boycott Against Israel Act. This was passed in 2021, and essentially the summary there in the bottom right corner says that Idaho's anti-BDS law, SB 1086, prohibits public entities from entering into contracts with companies that boycott goods or services from Israel. This legislation prevents the state from contracting with any business that boycotts Israel or its territories. The law has faced opposition from the ACLU. So here they opposed SB 1086. Just kind of talking about how they don't think that should have become law. Now this is kind of interesting. Here's the legislators who passed it, those who are against it. This is interesting, breaking it down by the numbers. You can see in the Idaho Senate, there were 35 or 28 Republicans that voted yes. In the House, there were 56 Republicans that voted yes. 3 voted nay. Democrats who voted in favor of SB 1086. In the Senate, there were 7 Democrats, and in the House, there were 2. So it came out to be that there were 84 Republicans in favor and 9 Democrats in favor. So again, malicious harassment. This is why I think that anti-Semitic bill is dangerous. To me, it's an infringement on freedom of speech, in my opinion. So malicious harassment here again. This was passed in 1983. We're going to talk a little bit more about this because I think it's really important. I don't know if this should actually even be a law. It's an enhancement. So like I said, if you cause damage to somebody, deface property, you injure another person, cause physical injury, and then you threaten by word or act to do the acts prohibited. Anyways, it's just using your words as a way to tack on these enhancements. We're going to talk more about that. So here's a little snippet here from a report prepared by the Idaho Advisory Committee to the United States Commission on Civil Rights. This is in 1986. And so here we have Jim Jones, who's an Idaho Attorney General, and he was a key supporter and advisor to the, that acronym is the Citizens Coalition Against Malicious Harassment during the 1982-1983 campaign for the malicious harassment law. He helped coordinate public meetings, lent legal authority, and reinforced the coalition's credibility with legislators, all without the coalition itself being incorporated. So they were an ad hoc group around that time. And we're going to talk more about that here in just a second. So I think you'll find this interesting. So a little bit after the malicious harassment law became law, this group, the Citizens Coalition Against Malicious Harassment, then became an official nonprofit in 1987, I believe. And so they changed the name to the Northwest Coalition of Malicious Harassment, which consisted of the 5 Northwestern states. And so here's the master list of people that were part of it. My mentor helped me put this list together here. But there are people in here from ADL Benai Brith, the Montana Human Rights Network. We have Under Sheriff Larry Broadbent from Kootenai County at the time, Kootenai County Prosecutor, on and on, different people and different organizations in different states, the Department of Justice, the American Jewish Committee. So it just, there's just all kinds of groups in here. So really, that's kind of where it explains the anti-Semitism law by showing and uncovering where the genesis of the malicious harassment law came from. It just came from the same people who are label lynching, defaming people who are Christians, who are conservatives, weaponizing the DOJ and the FBI, which we're going to get into, because this is all part and parcel. So that little that little malicious harassment catch there in the anti-Semitism bill was really the tell to me. I'm going to use a couple examples as we go here. I have a handful of slides left. I'm trying to make this last as long as I can, Doug, but without the since I can't play the videos, it doesn't help much. I do have an audio clip I really want to play, but so I guess I may not be able to play that. But anyway, here's an article here from the Idaho Capital Sun, and it's an article from Jim Jones, something he's done over the years. So he helped, pass this Idaho malicious harassment law, right? Where if you defame somebody because of their race, their color, their religion, you're a bad person, you're a hater. Well, he wrote this article here last year, or 2022, sorry, that states Idaho must once again send the hate mongers packing. He talks about a new group, Unite Against Hate, will bury the. They're talking about how there's these white supremacists, there's these white nationalists, these Christians in North Idaho, just really bad people. But in the article, here's some highlights. He's talking about white nationalists. He's talking about Christians. He also mentions though that there's this organization called United Against Hate, which is an initiative of the U.S. Attorney General. The White House held a campaign in 2022 called United We Stand, and they launched this organization, United Against Hate, that urged all 94 district attorneys' offices throughout the nation to participate in this campaign to community build with human rights groups in communities throughout the nation, nonprofits, to prevent hate, right? So they would hold these town halls. They did it at the Coeur d'Alene Casino in Sandpoint, had Tracy Whalen from the Department of Justice, Brian Gunderson from the Coeur d'Alene Field Office, working with like the Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, and these nonprofits that promote quote unquote human rights to report hate incidents, things that are not even technically crimes. So they were proactively keeping logs of people the last couple of years, and many people have no idea about this. And that's one of the things I've been heavily documenting. So when I saw this anti-Semitism thing, it just all tied together. It's really it's very frightening once you understand the dynamics of this. So that's kind of what I'm trying to share with you. And again, it's all documented on my Substack, kcwhalen.substack.com. There's all kinds of articles. So here's what the United Against Hate campaign was. When Trump came back into office this last year, it looks like the website was taken down. So I don't really know if it's gone, but I feel like it's still there, and it's not as prominent as it was, because they were really promoting this during Biden. So again, like they had all 94 U.S. attorneys' offices participate in this, working with the DOJ, FBI. Aims to increase reporting of hate crimes and bias-motivated incidents by raising community awareness, just building trust, and on and on. You get the idea. And here's a little mock-up of a couple of different flyers that they had in Idaho that was run by Merrick Garland through the AG. You can see that the one on here on the bottom left, you have the ADL, Boise State University. I didn't do that. That was part of the flyer. I just took a little clip of it. So they're hand in hand, and that really should kind of tell you all you need to know, in my opinion. Here's a clip from one of my articles. I actually asked to film this United Against Hate event at the Coeur d'Alene Casino, and they told me, if you can read there from the DOJ, this District Attorney's Office of Idaho, there will be no separate area for press. We are being hosted by the Coeur d'Alene tribe, who has kindly offered their facilities to hold such a large event. The event space is at the casino, and there are no firearms, cameras, recording equipment allowed at the casino. And so when I went there, I did bring a little camera. The Coeur d'Alene Press was taking pictures, and people were filming stuff, and so I recorded what I could of it. I documented that, and then I documented the second one at the in Sandpoint, and they didn't want me to film it. They just, what do you got? If you know, what do you have to hide? You know. And so they're encouraging people to report hate incidences, hate crimes in your community. Who decides what hate is? Here's a little. This is the Sandpoint United Against Hate event. I do have an audio here. I guess you're not going to be able to. I don't know why you can't hear the audio, but you can't hear that, right, Doug?
No.
Okay. Anyways, I basically I contacted the FBI and I got this FBI agent, Brian Gunnarsson, on the phone, and I asked him, what is white nationalism? You know, what's wrong with being white and what's wrong with being a nationalist? What's wrong with loving your country? And, you know, he was like, well, that's a good question. He didn't really know what to say. So, you know, it's like, what are we doing here? You know, what's the point of all this? You know, what country do we live in here? Um, anyways, really interesting. Try to go to the next slide here. So this is really interesting. When I first started out as what's called a First Amendment auditor, where you film police, I started doing records requests. When I started doing that, I would ask for my name. And back in 2018, they screwed up and they gave me a flyer just like the one you see on the left from the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. This is an internal flyer. It's not for public use. They screwed up and they gave me this one and they gave me a couple other ones. But they were basically, they disseminate this information through their intelligence analysts at the police stations. The sheriff's departments all have intelligence analysts. They're relaying information to the fusion center. There's one fusion center in every state, or the one main fusion center in every state, I should say, that's designated by the governor, but there can be multiple fusion centers. And in Idaho and Washington, those fusion centers are run by the state police. In Oregon, for whatever reason, it's run by the DOJ. And so I know what the email addresses are for intake, it's called. So they each have an email address, and you do a record request on that email address to see what's being sent to the fusion centers. So I've done that a little bit, just a little bit of information. But so this flyer on the left here, this is why people should be so concerned, is that the local human rights groups caught wind that there was going to be a Catholic Rosary Walk back in 2022 when the Pride in the Park event took place that was held by the North Idaho Pride Alliance. And they complained to their assets at the FBI and the police department that there's going to be a Catholic Rosary Walk near our event. And, you know, they were just defaming it, saying, you know, Vince James was behind it, which wasn't true. You can see the picture on the right here of these Catholic people. They're just going to pray for the people at the Pride event, you know. And the police department put out this internal flyer that was disseminated through the fusion centers, just because they were there to have Catholic Rosary Walk. So again, this ties into the malicious harassment law, essentially, because they're just waiting for, you know, right there, you could say, well, they're just there to hate on the people at the Pride event. And if someone causes an incident, boom, you have a hate crime, right? So this is extremely dangerous stuff that we're talking about here. Here's a couple of emails. On the top, you have an email from Jeanette Lassiter, who's the director of the Human Rights Education Institute in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And she sent an email to, she carbon copied Michelle Beach, who's an Idaho State Patrol officer, who you see there in the bottom right corner with a rainbow sash on, about this Catholic Rosary Walk. She tells the people here, sent to FBI, thanks. So that happened. And then we have Michelle Beach here sent that she sent this to our intel people in case they haven't seen it. That went to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, went to their intelligence analyst. So the flyer here that was created by the intelligence analyst in the police department. I guess I had a video here. I guess you can look at it. You can't hear it. But this was back in, excuse me, last year, July 2nd, or yeah, it was July 2nd. Last year. So they passed, the city council of Coeur d'Alene passed a hate crime ordinance. And we'll get into that in just a second, but it essentially just mirrored the Idaho malicious harassment law, but they created an ordinance of that law at a local level as an ordinance. So you can see this continual erosion, challenging rights, just for speech. And it's dangerous, it's very dangerous. So I'm gonna go to the next slide here. I want to talk about, so the city of Coeur d'Alene had just passed this hate crime ordinance. And actually, no, I think this was just before they passed it. Sorry. This was more in April. We had the UCAA women's basketball team here. I may have that wrong. NCAA. I don't watch basketball. Well, we had the women's basketball team here from Utah. And there was a kid downtown Coeur d'Alene that yelled the N-word out the window. Right. And what he really said was, I know you're the N-word, but I'd still have sex with you. That's basically what he said. I cleaned it up a lot, but that's essentially what he said. When these girls in this entourage were walking down the street after having dinner. So that's reported as a hate crime. So you have, I'll just play this video just for aesthetic. You can kind of see, I went and filmed this press conference. This is Tony Stewart here from the Human Rights Education, really Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations. He had a public access station through North Idaho College, and he would interview people from the ADL, from the SPLC, and act like he didn't have he was just interviewing people when really he was largely behind the Northwest Coalition Against Malicious Harassment. When you research this topic, it's extremely interesting how the narrative over the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't really quite what we were told. It was, a lot of these things were used to create social prestige in the communities, to get grant money. For instance, we had the North Idaho Pride Alliance in 2022 when the Patriot Front people showed up. I got a nonprofit security grant through the Coeur d'Alene Police Department that the North Idaho Pride Alliance was trying to get. It's a FEMA grant, a nonprofit security grant for security. And they were citing in their application, which was being shared with Captain Hagar of the police department, they were asking how does this application look to get grant money? And in that, it mentioned people like Dave Riley, because he was exposing things behind the Pride events. It mentioned the Idaho Tribune for writing stories about it. It mentioned the arrest Patriot Front. So really, it's just a way for them to get their grant money and have social prestige and VPC. So when this story happened, when this 18-year-old kid shouted out the window, the human rights groups just jumped on board right away. Again, because they want the grant money, they want the social prestige, in my opinion. And so this kid, essentially, he was questioned by the FBI agent Brian Gunnarsson, actually, because I got the body cam from him being questioned, and they were asking him, who said the N-word? Who said the N-word? Like, what country are we in here? And so essentially, the kid who worked at the Coeur d'Alene resort was fired. His father disowned him, 18-year-old kid, for simply yelling something out the window he probably shouldn't have yelled. But he wasn't charged. At the end of the day, the prosecutor couldn't charge him because he didn't injure anybody, he didn't damage property. So that destroyed that poor kid's livelihood at that time. Just kind of interesting for you to know. I wish I could play some of these videos. I plan to make this longer, Doug, but we're getting towards the end. But this not sure what this was. Oh, this was the interview with Tyler. Can't fast forward it, but essentially it's the interview. They were interrogating Tyler after he yelled the N-word. So he's at the police station. It'll come up here in a second. And just asking him, who said the N-word? Who, and the kids kind of say, oh, well, so and so said it. It goes on for 40 some minutes. But is that how we want our tax money to be spent? I don't know. And then here's just another video here. Literally 2 days after the hate crime ordinance is passed, our now mayor, Dan Gookin, calls myself and a friend of mine white supremacists because I was booing him because I don't like the guy. And he calls us white supremacists, racists, and he just passed a hate crime ordinance. So, the hubris. I wanted to just show you, here's the hate crime ordinance in Coeur d'Alene. Again, it's just mimicking, essentially it's just mimicking the malicious harassment law. And the penalty here, the penalty for the malicious harassment law in Idaho is I think it's $5,000 and a year in jail. And so this one's much more diminished. This one's $1,000 or 180 days in jail. So just so you know. So I guess I tried to make this last as long as I could, Doug, but I guess since I can't play the videos, that kind of slowed me down. But if you want to follow my work, I'm on X, Casey_Whalen. That's WHALEN. I'm on Substack, CaseyWhalen.substack.com. I'm on Rumble at North Idaho Exposed, and my Facebook is something like CaseyWhalen.522. I do put out different things on different platforms, so it's good to just follow all of them because sometimes it's video, sometimes it's articles. It depends. If you want to send me tips, you can do that by shooting me an email at northidahoexposed with a D at protonmail.com. And I'm always looking for help financially. I'm trying to do this full time. I have a little part-time work now, so that's nice, but I'm always trying to do records requests, or I'm traveling, or really my whole goal is to just help people and help develop stories and get their voices out there. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer some, because on this topic, this is my thing. So sorry I couldn't make that go a little bit longer, Doug, but
Oh, you're fine. I appreciate that. Fact is, Casey, if you could maybe send me your presentation with those clips and all that, and I can maybe try
Sure.
figure out how to get posted, and that way we can go ahead and watch them at our leisures and whatnot to be able to do that. So
Sure. Yeah, they're in articles and videos and other places, but yeah, I can put it together in something for you.
yeah, like I say, if you can pull that and just that whole presentation, that way everybody's aware of and can follow where you are and look at those. So thank you very much. Let's give Casey a big hand. Obviously did a lot of work. Did anybody have any questions that want to ask it? Run some. Come on up and use this microphone. Let me make sure it's on. Yeah, we just looked at that.
What dismays me a lot is so much of our effort today, and then you're doing a lot of it, is, how low can we go with corrosive, reprehensive language and not violate the First Amendment, rather than focusing on, even in the most elite colleges, how high can we go to have compelling, virtuous words to express and make it for a flourishing life. In the case of your focus on anti-Semitism, what is Israel to do? Because there's a connection between the vitriolic assertions of anti-Semitism and safety violation of Jewish students on elite college campuses, and really worrisome threats. There seems to be a closer connection between the extreme assertions of Israel committing genocide, extreme hyperbolic assertions against Israel, and dangers Israel faces if too many people got there, and a lot of very influential people across elite colleges stressing the BDS movement to try to bankrupt Israeli companies and endanger Israeli students on campuses that were the precursors of that worrisome violence and lack of safety of Jewish students on campuses. Has its origins in those vitriolic statements of students. They get those worldviews from unbalanced training and curricula with elite college professors. So when you have that connection, between the precursory of genocide accusations and trends of more violence against Jews, can you understand where that would motivate Jewish organizations to want to have some of these limitations on First Amendments that may be worrisome, but it's a reaction to those kinds of extremes connections between the hyperbolic assertions and the physical dangers that Israel faces. After all, they're surrounded by xenophobic death cults. Can you understand why they're really worried about so much of this extreme anti-Semitism that's, you know, not to paraphrase a Supreme Court justice. Oh, I'm sorry. To paraphrase, I like eye
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. You're right. Anyway, that's what I'm saying is that to paraphrase a Supreme Court justice, you know, the First Amendment is not a suicide pact. Anyway, that's the lengthy question I had.
Yeah, well, I just think I understand your concern. And I appreciate your question. I just think we already have laws. You know, if anybody injures somebody, you know, there's already laws for all kinds of things. I don't know if we just don't need laws on speech. I mean, who decides? You know, if it's vitriolic, that's one thing. I mean, but if somebody acts on that, then that's another. So we have laws against violence, against physical
Well, yeah,
harm.
well, actually, violence occurs, and then we're going to do something about it without looking at the origins of how that violence is precipitated. You know, that I don't know. I'm not saying I have the perfect solution, but it is. I'm trying to understand why Jews in Israel would go to these extremes, trying to limit the First Amendment on some extreme cases where there is that connection between speech and the inevitable result in the unprecedented increase in accusations of genocide and anti-Semitism after October 7th a couple of years ago. So, you know.
Yeah,
But
just concerned. I just don't think. I just think that's extremely dangerous to be doing that because who decides? I mean, that could turn on anybody, right? So, I just I mean, private institutions can do what they want as far as limiting, you know, certain people, but I just think that ultimately it's not up to the government. No, these legislators don't have any more rights than you or I, and so.
One other example I want to say, such speech and violence is, I hope you're concerned about the Southern Poverty Law Center labeling a lot of mainstream conservative organizations hate groups. And you remember that the Family Research Council headquarters was barely survived.
Kind of hard to hear you, sir.
Okay. Oh, anyway, a few years ago, a radical leftist armed with a gun tried to shoot some people at the headquarters of the Family Research Council because he had heard of the Family Research Council being labeled as a hate group with the Southern Poverty Law Center. And, you know, the Alliance for Defending Freedom is labeled by Southern Poverty Law Center hate group, even though it's won almost all its cases for the U.S. Supreme Court, you know, and yet that hate group designation does motivate a lot of extreme leftists to commit violence. Or we barely escape the violence because of a valiant security official at the Family Research Council headquarters. You know, so again, I'm not saying I disagree with you all over the place, but there's got to be some understanding of what Israel and Jewish people are trying to do as responses to that kind of extremities they're facing. Here's my simple.
well, I actually, John, I think it's not a simple question because and go ahead and go sit down and let somebody else take a question. But you know, I was looking at some things and maybe I'm stepping out of line a little bit here, but where do we stop? If you look at a global perspective and whatnot, Christians are being persecuted globally. And should we do something about that? Okay. Idaho Falls, East Idaho, has a strong LDS Mormon faction. Okay. You hear things about Mormons and stuff. Do we need to protect them somehow or not? Okay. I don't have the answer, but I think that the big question really is, and when I think I might take away a little bit from what Casey's saying is we have a lot of laws on the books that already are impacting and have a potential impact about how we can talk and will affect our First Amendment. Okay, and do we need more? And actually, even the ones we have, are they, to be short, constitutional? Do we need them? Now, can we legislate morality? Can we legislate good people? No. You know, you'll never be able to legislate that. But I think that's the big question is how do we do with that? Dennis, you had a question. Come on up.
Casey, out of all the corruption that goes on in government, and I think most of us think there are tons of it, especially with the Doge reports that came out. But what inspired you to focus in on this topic instead of some other issue?
Hey, Dennis, it's really nice to see you again. Yeah, we saw Dennis last June during the we were doing a little bit, and Dennis was in our video, so it was nice to see you, Dennis. That was great. Anyways, I guess it was just a concern about why is this happening. I don't think a lot of people knew it was happening. We just heard, some legislators went over there from across the country, and then to find out there were 5 Idaho legislators that went over there, and okay, well that's interesting. And it was being reported in the media that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel was behind it, but there was no mention of the Jewish Federations of North America and this National Association of Jewish Legislators. So to me, once I started getting these emails and seeing these differences by comparing and contrasting, it was like, okay, well, why is this happening? I mean, obviously with October 7th and depending on whatever side you're on, whatever, that's not why I'm here. It's just to show these inner workings and this networking that's going on to promote this particular topic, the state of Israel. So thank you for your question, Dennis.
Another question? Come on up. Look at that screen so Casey can see you. There you go.
Yep. Not really a question, a comment. It seems like we're kind of dealing with a couple of issues. You start with nation state to nation state, which is a diplomatic thing. And then you slide into a Jewish ethnicity and hate crimes, and then freedom of speech. I see these as almost like 3 separate discussions that we should be having. The George Washington opening slide, I don't see how just diplomacy can count as an entanglement. And I didn't like how it kind of implied it, that just talking with someone is an entanglement. I think that was more about treaties and tying businesses and commerce to government. I do appreciate that you're researching. We do need to research our allies and our enemies. Thank you for the work you've done. But yeah, I don't know how helpful this discussion was, but I definitely did not feel my state rep was entangled simply by visiting Israel.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just think that it is an entanglement. They're accepting gifts from a foreign entity, and that to me I don't think that's okay in my opinion. But if you're okay with it, that's great. Vote for him again.
Pardon? My name? Yeah, it's Doug.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So I have a couple like just statements and questions. First off, this topic is not controversial at all. You're either, this topic is not controversial at all. You're either American Idaho first or you're not. And that's my, like, I'm right leaning, but this has become an issue that I'm a one issue voter now because it's either you're American Idaho first or you're not. And just kind of going back on the video that we've seen and the things that have been going on in the state, like what happened at Boise State, they shut down the protest, the protests, like with the BDS movement. How does Israel want to be protested? Because if you don't allow people to protest and voice, the next step is violence. That's how it goes, or force. So how would they like to be protested? Because you're not allowing the students to speak and voice their opinion. We're not allowed to boycott them, divest, or sanction. How would you like to be protested? And if I was looking, the Pew Research shows that 59% of Americans have unfavorable views of Israelis. I imagine if you polled the people locally and in the state, that would line up. So if our representatives aren't going to represent our view, if 59% of the state and people locally don't have favorable views of Israel, and our representatives aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, they need to be removed. They need to be primaried. I mean, this is ridiculous that this has become such a big issue. And then something that I'm probably, because you brought that slide with the ACLU that you're aware of, there's a Texas city recently that they were not going to receive Hurricane Harvey aid unless they promised not to boycott Israel, because their city was giving money to Israel. They found out about it. Someone like your work found out that they were giving money to Israel, and they were going to stop doing that, and they were going to withhold federal funding to this city that had been devastated by this hurricane, because they're not giving money to a foreign country. Like, does nobody have a problem with that? Like, this has become, like I said, I'm a one issue voter now. Either you're America, Idaho first, or you get out. Like, this is unacceptable, and it's sad that it's come this far. So I don't know if you have anything thoughts on that.
Yeah,
or...
no, thank you so much for your thoughts. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I understand your viewpoint, and I do. Like, what more do you need to know if you're not allowed to like protest, or you can't boycott something, or obviously here soon you may not be able to say something about Jewish people. That's not the point. The point is that, that's an infringement on free speech, and no one has the authority to delegate that, to infringe on that, right? So appreciate your viewpoint, and people definitely need to stand up the next legislative cycle. It's kind of why I'm doing this, to draw awareness to this, and really this topic. There are multiple aspects to it, but it all ties together. And at the end of the day, you have the ADL, NIBRIF, Montana Human Rights Network, Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, these nonprofits that promote human rights that are essentially trying to stifle people's free speech. And that's really what this is all about. So thank you for your comments, sir.
And just something to go along with like that bill that's trying to get passed with the anti-Semitism. They're snakes, and they're clever. They're trying to tie that into it, you being anti-Israel, you're anti-Semitic. So I mean, it's just,
yeah, what does it mean? That's the whole point, right? The whole HRA definition, that's still being debated as to what is that. So it will probably be, generalized, so it can be used against people, and that's not American.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
So I'm as American as anybody, okay? I don't like your tone. I'll tell you that straight up. I believe you're an anti-Semitic, straight up. You don't like the nation of Israel. So 5 of our legislators went over there. I read in the paper where they wanted them to resign because of what they did. So how about whenever a Caribbean group will say the legislators, federal legislators from a Caribbean country, they all go to their country. They may be American. Are we going to throw them out too? It's about economics, my friend. It's about economics. And I don't care where you like what I got to say or not, or anybody in this room, but it's dug out. Why Israel? Israel is in the Bible. Israel is the only country in the Bible that where its dimensions are laid out. If you look, so we're, God tells us that we are supposed to, you curse me, I'm going to curse you. And our country is becoming more and more anti-Semitic every day, and this nation is going to pay for it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your words, sir. Well, I would just say that Jamaica's not trying to take my First Amendment away. In Israel influence is, and so, we'll have that conversation, I guess, if Jamaica tries to take my rights away. But right now, it's people that are in favor of Israel. So that's just the facts. And to create this anti-BDS bill, it's not lawful at all.
It's like I said, this is a bit of a controversial issue, and so that's why we're talking about it, because we do need to talk about it. You have another question or comment? Come on up. No, come on up. Yeah, you have something. Come on up. It's something. Okay.
Okay, so we appreciate you being here. When Barbara
Thank you.
Ehart was here, she talked to us a little bit about what she did while she was in Israel. But when she was asked about what she learned in the meetings they had, she said, well, I didn't take any notes. And so she couldn't really tell us what had happened. I'm very curious, in your research, have you found what was discussed in those meetings with those legislators and all of that while they were in Israel? Because evidently Barb couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, there are some videos out there. You can actually do a search on the internet for some of these videos. Mike Huckabee was over there promoting Israel, and they went to some of these historical sites. Sounds like they were very busy. They had a full itinerary. So, but a lot of it was, it was fun. They were going to to see what it was like over there, what the country's like, and so. Largely, no, I really don't know a lot of what was really, there were some meetings, but largely a lot of those videos are not public. So I don't know.
Any other questions for Casey? Have a guy come up.
So Barb, can you hear me? So Barb Ehart is sitting right in front of us, and she just handed me this letter. And in the first or second paragraph, she calls you an anti-Semite. And I haven't really heard you say anything that's explicitly anti-Jewish, or you're just kind of asking questions like, what's up with this foreign influence going on? Like, why are our politicians seem to have this unique preference and this unique treatment of this group of people?
Could you speak up
Where's
a little bit, please?
Sorry. I get a little
I can hear
nervous
you.
in front of you.
You're good.
I heard you.
So my question is, what is with this Judeo-Christian thing? Because they seem like they're polar opposites to me. We have similar beliefs. You could say, like, structurally, we have similar values, but I think they're polar opposites in a lot of different ways. So I was just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this is not, we're not turning this into the Jerry Springer show, so I'm not here to talk about that. But no, and that's how this works, how this label lynching thing works. That's the human rights groups, all these people do the same baloney. They just try to label people, and that's fine. I don't hate anybody. What I don't like is America and Americans being taken advantage of by a foreign government, and I have a large problem with that. I think a lot of other people do too. So I'll just leave it at that.
More comments? Questions? Like I say, this is a very controversial topic. Okay, but it's like a guy, we need to talk about these things. We need to talk about them, and both sides, so we understand. We can come together somehow with an understanding of things. It's like I said, you can't, and it's been said, you can't legislate morality. Okay, you can't legislate how people think and believe and all this. You can try and influence their behavior with laws and throwing them in jail or this type of stuff. But then, but what does that achieve? It doesn't actually achieve the blending, the coming together. And when I think it's hugely important that we discuss the controversial issues, okay, that we talk about them. We may not be comfortable with it. We may not like what we hear. We may not want to hear this side. You know, I'm over here in my George. That's what that's where I am. Period. But I don't want to even hear this. And my question to people that say I don't want to even hear this is why not? Because are we afraid on either side, if you will? Are we afraid that we will find out something that causes us to question our current stance? And I don't know, maybe not. Okay. But the thing is too, is I believe this is that by having that discussion and hearing those sides, if you're on one side and having that discussion, you actually may be able to influence what's going on the other side. And you've got to be able to open up your mind, listen objectively, work through it. Yeah, it might be heated a little bit, but that's okay. And that's okay. Because the one thing you don't want to do is let it sit and stew and brew and all of that. And then what do you have happen? Then it turns really violent. And we have to talk. We have to come together as people. And that's why I always say about Stand Up for Idaho and whatnot. I'm not going to tell you what to do. No, we'll try to find out what the truth is wherever. Okay, but we need to open our minds, set our biases aside, and just listen. Just listen a little bit. And we may learn something. And that goes for the other side too that's doing the talking or whatever. They need to listen. Because they may learn something. But a big thing that we have to be careful of it, and is we need to be able to talk. We need to be able to speak freely. And I believe that that's what part of the First Amendment was for, is so that we can speak freely, so that we can yell at each other across the fence and then go chase the cow down that broke the fence so that we can fix it. Okay, but we've got to be able to start to say that I can't call Joe a name, okay, or that if I call him a name in a heat of anger, I'm going to go to jail for that. That's not going to help my relationship with Joe. Okay. But if I can call Joe a blah, 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 and he can call me a blah, 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 and whatnot, and then at the end of the day and everything, we get done calling each other names, we shake hands and go get the cow, that's what counts. Right? That's the First Amendment. Okay? We need to be able to do these things. I don't have the answer. I don't know anything. Everybody walk in this door tell you, I know nothing. I'm here to learn just as much as anybody. And I truly mean that, because I think that we can all learn from each other. And it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on, what side of the aisle you're on, what religion you are, whatever. That's why, I'll just pound it. Stand Up for Idaho is nonpartisan. We're not a party. We don't represent any party. We're not a part of any party. I don't care what we're just nothing. As far as that goes, we're non-denominational. This isn't about whether you are Catholic, Jewish, LDS, whatever. Okay, we're here to figure it out ourselves, and together we can make a better state and a better nation, and we can stand up for Idaho. So, okay, anybody else? And I'll get off my soapbox. So, anybody else have a comment for Casey? Come on up.
Hello, Casey. I appreciate everything you do. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
hey,
Get up to this mic a little bit.
I was hoping that you could maybe clarify a little bit more about, excuse me, about the curriculum that the schools want to present the furtherance of the Holocaust education. Now, is this a nationwide program? Is this just going on a state by state? And who decides the curriculum? And will they present a balanced view? Are we going to get the same talking points that we get from the Holocaust Museum? You know, or are we going to maybe get some input from someone like Gerhard Rudolph? And thank you for interviewing him, by the way. I learned a
Yeah,
lot
sure.
from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I filmed him last year, the JP conference in Kentucky, but essentially the HCR 25 Holocaust education, it was just a suggestion. They couldn't mandate it. So they just suggested or encouraged the education. So you can actually go to the Idaho Israel Alliance YouTube channel, and there's only a couple videos, but you can see a video on there where they're actually talking about HCR 25. So it looks like it will be from what I can tell, this HCR 25 will they may try to push it as a bill. Then again, it's just going to encourage the school systems to have Holocaust education, and I have no idea how that works. Who decides? I have no idea. So I just wanted to make people aware of it. And so with the anti-BDS bill on the books already, and then we have this potential anti-Semitism bill coming up here next legislative cycle. So I don't know if Bobby Hart's going to sponsor this next time around, but people need to be paying attention and setting the gap here because the First Amendment's at stake.
So this wouldn't be a required course for graduation or anything. It would just be possibly an elective.
Yeah, it's just encouraged. So
So it's just a resolution at this point.
yeah, just to encourage the school system. Yeah, it's really just it doesn't really have teeth from what I can tell. But that could change. I don't know.
And is this the same case for the anti-Semitism legislation?
Yeah,
That it's just a resolution? Because when reading the language of this resolution, it looks like it's got some teeth.
Yeah, it has a penalty. It has the malicious harassment aspect in that law. So they created this specialized class of Jews that if you talk about Israel or anti-Semitism or the Jewish people or whatever, then there's a penalty. But you have to actually, again, you have to cause an injury, and then you have to use a racial slur or a religious slur while you're doing that. So it's really it's kind of hard for them to charge this ultimately because there first has to be an actual crime of violence, and then if someone says something, then it's an enhancement.
Like you said, who decides what is hate, and how do you split
It's encouraging. It's influencing behavior.
There's so many different facets to this anti-Semitism resolution. I bet it's very worrisome to me. I picked out about 17 different aspects to it, and if you really put that under the magnifying glass, there's a lot of that just doesn't hold up to critical scrutiny, and that's what we need is more critical thinking and analysis, and not just get brushed away by these accusations, because that's the whole term anti-Semitism, as I understand it, was just like conspiracy theorist or other misnomers.
It's a made up word. It's a made up word, and anyways, it's just use a crudgel. But I would suggest if people want to read the routing slip in all 3 pages of it, which you probably want to do because it will largely be the same language that will be introduced this next legislative cycle. Go to my Substack, caseywhalen.substack.com, and it's like the 3rd most recent article called Israel Influence Op Targets American Legislators, and you can read it in there.
Thank you, Casey.
I'm going
to feel free to email me at northidahoexposed@protonmail.com, and I'll send you the link if anything.
I think it's important for all of us to pay attention to all legislation. This is a piece that, has been brought up because of obvious reasons and stuff, but recognize, I don't know how many bills are actually brought up in the 3 months that, the January, February, March timeframe, and there are hundreds of them, and every one of them impacts you, and you need to pay attention to them. Okay, not just this one, but all of them. It's hard to do, and being a legislator, how could you do that? I mean, and so we have to give the people that are actually in office, you know, that are legislators, a little bit of credit for trying to do the best that they can. Okay, when they're flooded with all of these things that are coming out. So again, you know, if you think you can do better than they are, and why not? Step up, run. Okay, how many of you are really willing to run? It's not that easy. We just went through a mayoral election, okay, and had runoffs. And you think it's any easier being a legislator? Okay, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of dedication. Okay, but it's up to us all to pay attention to legislation. If there's something that piques your interest and you feel something strongly about, you need to go testify in committee. Why not? Why not? Whatever it is. You know, don't just sit on your couch and grumble about it. Okay? Some things that actually piqued my attention here a little bit is, yeah, this trip that happened, just because of the way it was presented and all that, piqued my interest a little bit. But then you get into thinking, okay, again, all these trips, who's paying for them? How many are there? Who's going where and who and all this or pick an entity and an organization. You know, I'll pick on the teachers union right now because they came to mind. Is a teachers union actually paying for legislators to go somewhere domestically? You know, go to Florida, I don't care, whatever, several times a year, or doing this. You know, is the Dairyman Association doing this? Is Idaho Farm Bureau doing this and everything to our legislators? That's a, you know, a free ride for them. Oh, that's nice. Is that a conflict of interest? Is there an ethical issue with that? It's just a question. I don't have the answer. Maybe if I see the Attorney General one of these first days, I'll ask him. Okay. Is these trips, if it's on the taxpayer's dollar, well, in any way, are all of the trips that the legislators taking, are they necessary? Are they worthwhile? And are they in best interest of us? So those are some things that I would throw out there. Next time you see your representative or your senator, asking, you know, where you been the last year? How many trips did you go on? Where did you go? Who paid for them? Okay. So we need to hold our people accountable. Okay. But then again, I'll throw this out. If you think you can do a better job, why isn't your hat in the ring? Casey, let's give Casey big again. Casey, again, thank you so much for sharing your research. I know, like I said, it's a controversial issue, but you know what? This is only one of thousands that are out there. Okay, everybody, remember next week, come next week, because I highly encourage you to do that and listen to City Councilman Jim Francis give us a class. And we're going to go to school, back to high school for an hour or so, and learn a little bit about what the city councilman has to deal with, especially when it comes to land decisions. So with that, everybody be safe. I don't know whether it's snowing out there or not, but winter's here. So be safe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Take care.